The uncomfortable truth about kindness. All right, let's just lay it all out there. An uncomfortable truth you might have felt deep down, but never had the guts to say out loud. You were taught to be kind, to stay humble, to be gentle, right? And you were probably told that if you just kept doing the right thing, the world would magically reward you. That if your heart stayed pure, life would eventually return the favor. But let's be real. Life isn't some fairy tale. You know this. How many times have you tried to be the good one, only to get completely overlooked? How many times have you bitten your tongue just to keep the peace and then ended up feeling totally disrespected? Or maybe you've held on to your principles while watching someone far more cunning, someone with a sly smile, just cruise right past you? Here's the deal. The world doesn't actually reward goodness. It rewards awareness. And guys like Machiavelli, he was one of the few brave enough to just come right out and say it. He didn't write The Prince to teach you how to be a saint. No, he wrote it as a raw, honest survival guide for people trying to navigate a world full of predators, trying to keep their soul intact without losing their lives in the process. Machiavelli made it crystal clear. Morality without strategy is just stupidity wearing a saint's robe. Think about it. Kindness, when it's not protected, becomes this leash, this collar that others can use to drag you wherever they want. It's not that being kind is wrong, not at all. The problem is when you believe that kindness alone is enough to earn you respect. Because in the eyes of the world, goodness without boundaries is pretty much an open invitation for exploitation. So ask yourself, the people you truly admire, the ones who've risen to power, did they get there just by being sweet and innocent? Or did they understand human nature? Did they know exactly when to be gentle and when to be firm? When to offer a helping hand and when to keep the knife hidden behind their back? Machiavelli wasn't trying to turn you into a villain. He was trying to get you to stop being naive. He was trying to prevent you from walking into a game where you don't even know the rules. Because if you don't understand how this game is played, you're just going to end up as a pawn in someone else's master plan. Every single time you stay quiet just to keep the peace, every time you give without expecting anything in return, every time you tolerate something you really shouldn't, you're silently broadcasting to the world, hey, I'm weak, use me. But you can stop that right now. You can choose to stop being shaped by the world and instead start shaping it through your intelligence. That's exactly why you're here. Not to ditch your kindness, but to transform it into something nobody, and I mean nobody, will dare to take advantage of. Let's be super clear. The issue isn't that you're a good person. The issue is that you don't know how to protect that goodness. You're walking through life thinking everyone plays by the same rules, that people will treat you exactly how you treat them, that decency is somehow contagious. But it's not. The world isn't packed with like-minded, honorable souls. It's full of opportunists, predators in fancy suits, manipulators with the kindest eyes, people who know exactly what to do with someone like you. Someone generous, someone trusting, someone who can't even imagine using others and therefore can't recognize when they themselves are being used. You've become the perfect target, not because you're weak, but because you're utterly transparent, predictably safe. Machiavelli saw this coming. He saw what so many people just refuse to admit, that human nature, when pushed into a corner, isn't noble. It's calculated, that given the chance, people will choose advantage over ethics. And unless you get this, you're just going to keep being a casualty of your own high ideals. This isn't about becoming cynical. It's about becoming intelligent, about refining your kindness, making it strategic. You don't need to betray your principles, but you absolutely need to stop laying them out on a silver platter for others to exploit. You need to learn how to really read people, how to sense their motives before they even open their mouths, how to spot a smile that's hiding a knife, and to understand that being loved is not the same as being respected. Machiavelli once wrote, and this is a heavy one, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. And you probably chose to be loved, to be accepted, to seem completely harmless. But let's be honest, what has that really gotten you? Has it brought you admiration? Has it built your power? Has it made others think twice before crossing you? Or has it just taught you over and over that people will take what you give and then vanish into thin air the moment you need something back? Kindness, when it's not backed by presence, by strength, and by clear boundaries, doesn't inspire loyalty. It inspires entitlement. People don't respect what's always available, what's easy to get, what never ever says no. And when they don't respect you, they don't listen to you. They don't consider you. They don't protect you. They just use you. And it's not because they're monsters. It's because you never taught them otherwise. So if you've been scratching your head, wondering why your good heart keeps getting stomped on, why your silence always leads to disrespect, why your giving hand never seems to get anything back in full circle, it's because you've confused kindness with a strategy. And it's not a strategy, not until you give it a spine, not until you combine it with awareness, with discernment, and with power. Machiavelli wasn't saying you have to stop being good. He was saying, one, you have to stop being blind. You didn't just want people to like you. You were absolutely starving for it. Not love in its purest sense, but approval, acceptance, that quiet nod from the world that screams, you're good, you belong. You learned to survive by pleasing, by shrinking yourself, by smoothing over every single edge of your personality just to avoid rejection. And over time, that survival strategy became your entire identity. You became the peacemaker, the agreeable one, the person who kept their thoughts polite, their voice low, and their presence utterly predictable. You told yourself that made you kind, but in reality, it made you invisible. Because here's the brutal truth Machiavelli would whisper right into your ear. The world isn't ruled by the lovable, it is ruled by the unreadable. When you crave to be liked, you become soft in the very places that require steel. You compromise when you should be holding your ground. You give second chances when silence would have been a far more powerful statement, and slowly, subtly, the world stops seeing you as someone to remember. It starts seeing you as someone to use. Machiavelli famously wrote, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one must choose." And again, this wasn't an invitation to be cruel. It was a cold, hard recognition of human nature. People follow those they can't fully predict, not those who just give away their entire essence for free. When you lead with your desperate need to be liked, you essentially telegraph your weakness. You let people know exactly what buttons to press, exactly how far they can push you. And worst of all, you let them believe that your kindness is endless, that they can disrespect you without any real consequence, because your approval-seeking heart will always come crawling back for more. But approval, that's a prison. It's a prison built with flimsy compliments and locked with crippling self-doubt. And the more you chase it, the further you drift from the man you were truly meant to become. Because here's the secret no one tells you. Being liked is cheap. It costs you absolutely nothing. But being respected? That's earned. That demands boundaries. That demands a backbone. That demands the willingness to walk away from any room that insists your silence is the price for their love. So take a good, hard look at your life. Look at the areas where you've given too much, where you've stayed too long, where you've tolerated things too quietly. And ask yourself honestly, was that truly kindness or was it fear? Because if you don't face that truth right now, you're just going to keep reliving the same painful lesson. You'll keep smiling through disrespect, keep apologizing for your own needs, keep hoping that one day someone will magically see your worth without you having to roar. But they won't. Not until you become the kind of man who doesn't need to be liked. Not until you become the kind of man who can be kind and still somehow be feared. The power of perception and strategic silence. From a young age, you were probably fed the same lie, that goodness would eventually be recognized, that if you just stayed loyal, patient, and honest, life would eventually hand you the crown. But what they didn't tell you is that the world isn't really watching you in that way. And if it is, it's certainly not applauding your purity, it's calculating your usefulness. Because the world, as Machiavelli saw it, doesn't operate on virtue, it operates on leverage. Power isn't about your good intentions, it's about what you can control. So let me hit you with this. Where has your decency truly gotten you? How many times have you done what you considered the right thing, only to watch someone far more cunning, more ruthless, more clued into the game, just soar right past you? It stings, doesn't it? Because part of you still desperately wants to believe the myth that good guys finish first, that the truth always wins. But if you've lived long enough, you know that's just not how the world works. The world doesn't reward morally good men. It rewards strategically good men. Men who know how to weaponize their presence, who understand exactly when to speak and when to completely vanish, who grasp that appearances are often far more valuable than raw authenticity. Machiavelli warned us, it is not necessary to have all the virtues, but it is necessary to appear to have them. Why? Because appearance shapes perception, and perception shapes power. You might be the absolute wisest man in the room, but if you can't control how others perceive you, if you look soft when you should be standing firm, if you appear desperate when you should be detached, you lose your influence. The manipulator thrives because he looks confident. The fool wins because he sounds certain. And the virtuous man? He waits silently, hoping against hope that someone will finally notice his worth. But the world rarely notices what doesn't actively demand its attention. That's why Machiavelli didn't just teach survival. He taught performance. He taught the art of cultivating an image that commands respect even before you utter a single word. He taught the discipline to act with clear intent, not just impulse. And above all, he taught the courage to finally let go of the delusion that people are fair. They aren't. They are emotional, reactive, drawn to charisma, to mystery, to dominance, not to pure goodness. So if you want to stop being perpetually overlooked, you absolutely must stop hoping your inherent goodness will be enough. You must become the kind of man whose silence carries gravity, whose words are rare but piercingly sharp, whose very presence makes others straighten their posture. Because in the end, it's not morality that rules the world, it's mastery. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever watched someone far less competent than you get ahead simply because they looked the part? Not because they were smarter, not because they worked harder, but because they had mastered the art of presence. This is where most people lose the game before they even step onto the field. They think truth is enough. They believe that being good at what you do will eventually speak for itself. But Machiavelli knew better. He said, "It is not necessary to have all the virtues, but to appear to have them." That's not deception, my friend. That's strategy. Because in the eyes of the world, you are not simply what you are. You are what you appear to be. People don't see your beautiful inner character. They see your posture. They hear your tone. They read your confidence or your hesitation. And they make snap judgments based on those surface impressions. So if you appear uncertain, they will treat you as uncertain. If you appear passive, they will overlook you. If you appear soft, they will challenge you. And it won't matter how good your heart is or how capable you are behind closed doors. Because power isn't just about what's inside. It's about how well you project it into the room. The harsh truth is, people follow what they perceive as authority, even if that authority is just a well-crafted facade. And that's why the loudest, most confident fool often commands more attention than the silent, intelligent man. Why? Because the fool understands the one thing most good men never learn. You must master the narrative of yourself. You must learn to curate your presence like a king curates his public image. Not to please others, but to dictate the terms of how others engage with you. Because if you don't define your value, they absolutely will. And when they do, they will almost always undervalue you. You don't need to pretend to be someone you're not, but you do need to present yourself effectively. Power isn't just held, it's projected. Respect isn't just earned, it's signaled. So stop hoping people will eventually see your worth. Start showing it intentionally. Machiavelli wasn't encouraging arrogance. He was telling you the uncomfortable truth that polite society tries so hard to hide, that appearances rule perception, and perception shapes reality. It's not about becoming fake, it's about becoming undeniable. Power isn't always loud. In fact, the strongest people in the room often say the least. Why? Because what you say can, and often will be, used against you. But what you withhold? That creates mystery, and mystery, my friend, creates control. Machiavelli grasped this perfectly. He wrote, "A prince must know how to conceal his intentions, not because deception is noble, but because transparency in the wrong hands is pure suicide. Most people think speaking up is power, that just blurting out what's on your mind earns you respect. But often, it just earns you exposure. Because once people can predict your thoughts, your values, your next move, they gain massive leverage over you. And when you're predictable, you're no longer dangerous. You're simply manageable. Strategic silence isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about preserving your edge. It's about knowing exactly what to reveal and what to keep buried deep down. Think about it. How many times have you over-explained yourself, trying desperately to be understood, only to feel more misunderstood, or worse, completely dismissed? How many times have you trusted someone too quickly, revealed too much, and then watched that very information come back to bite you squarely in the backside? That's not honesty. That's just poor self-defense. In a world full of watchers, those who control the flow of information are the ones who control the entire board. Because the less people know about you, the more they're forced to respect the space around you, to wonder. And hesitation is power. You don't owe the world your every thought. You don't owe explanations to people who haven't earned your truth. Every single word you speak should carry weight. Every sentence should feel deliberate, measured, intentional. Because when you speak less, people lean in. They listen. They replay your words in their minds, trying to find meaning between the lines. That is influence. The man who talks endlessly is cheap, forgettable, easily replaceable. But the man who knows how to pause, who lets silence do the heavy lifting, that man carries a profound presence. Strategic silence is not weakness. It is the armor of those who refuse to be read too easily. So stop filling the air with unnecessary noise. Stop giving people the full, detailed map of who you are. Leave gaps. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Because when no one knows exactly what you think, no one can truly control you. And that is the kind of power no one dares to challenge. If people can predict you, they can control you. It's that simple. Machiavelli didn't just study power, he studied fear. And he unearthed something that history proves time and time again. Predictable men are expendable, but the unpredictable are dangerous. You see, when people know exactly how you'll react, they can plan around you. They can expertly manipulate your emotions. They can trap you using your own predictable patterns. You become a puppet, pulled by invisible strings, not because they're smarter, but because you've made yourself so incredibly easy to read. Think about how many times you've responded the exact same way to pressure, to rejection, to disrespect, to conflict. And then think about how easily others exploited that consistency because they could count on you to be safe, to be soft, to be scared of anything that might surprise them. But here's the game changer. The moment you become unpredictable, the power dynamic completely flips. They don't know whether you'll stay or walk away, whether you'll forgive or simply disappear, whether you'll respond with calm composure or with cold, icy indifference. And that uncertainty, that psychological tension, it creates distance. It creates respect. It creates space for you to operate on your terms. Because people don't fear the cruel. They fear the unreadable, the one who can't be boxed in, the one who smiles without revealing a shred of intent, the one who doesn't react the way they expect, the one who can go quiet and leave them perpetually guessing. Unpredictability isn't chaos. It's calculated mystery. It's keeping just enough of yourself hidden that no one ever truly knows where you stand. Because when they can't predict you, they can't prepare for you. And when they can't prepare for you, they hesitate. And he who makes others hesitate commands the entire game. So break your patterns. Refuse to be defined by your past behavior. Say no when they expect a yes. Disappear when they expect your constant presence. Speak only when silence would be safer. Because your unpredictability is not confusion. It is control. It is a shield. And sometimes it's the only thing standing between you and being utterly devoured. Machiavelli didn't tell you to become chaotic. He told you to become untouchable. And untouchable begins when you stop being predictable. The impact of absence and emotional mastery. Let me give you one of the most profoundly misunderstood truths about power. Respect isn't built by constantly showing up. Respect is built when your absence creates impact. We've been conditioned to believe that being available, Being responsive, being ever present is a sign of value. But Machiavelli warned us otherwise. He understood that too much familiarity breeds contempt, and that scarcity inherently increases worth. If you are always around, always answering, always giving, always accessible, then your presence becomes ordinary, expected, and ultimately taken for granted. And what's expected is rarely, if ever, truly appreciated. You see this play out in relationships. You see it at work. You see it in every single human dynamic. The one who chases, the one who consistently over-delivers, the one who never steps back, is often the one who is most easily forgotten. Not because they weren't valuable, but because they never allowed their value to be felt through distance. Machiavelli taught that a leader must never become too familiar, not because they should act superior, but because the more people see you, the more they believe they've got you all figured out. And once they believe that, they stop respecting your boundaries. But when you deliberately pull back, when you disappear intentionally, when you're not the first to reply, not the one always reaching out, not the one always ready to give, something profound shifts. They begin to notice the silence. They feel the absence. They question what changed. And in that questioning, you rise dramatically in value. Your time becomes a privilege. Your words become rare and precious. Your attention becomes incredibly weighty. Because now your presence isn't casual. It's deeply intentional. Look around you at the most powerful figures throughout history. They were never those who showed up to every debate, every event, every petty conflict. They chose their moments with extreme care. And in doing so, they made the world wait for their voice. And when they finally spoke, the world listened. That is strategic distance. And it's not about isolation, it's about elevation. Because when you're always visible, you're always vulnerable. But when you meticulously manage your exposure, when you decide when and how people experience you, you no longer beg for respect, you command it. So stop fearing absence. Stop thinking you'll be forgotten if you pull back. Because if the only reason you're remembered is because you're always available, then you were never truly respected to begin with. The ones who leave a lasting impact aren't the ones who scream the loudest. They're the ones who show up like thunder, rare, intentional, and utterly unforgettable. Let's talk about the most underestimated form of power: emotional control. You've probably been taught to express yourself, to speak your truth, to let it all out. But the harsh reality is, every single reaction you give is a window straight into your weaknesses. And those who seek power, they are watching, they are listening, they are taking meticulous notes. Because the moment you lose your temper, you've already lost the upper hand. Machiavelli knew this intimately. He didn't just teach strategy, he taught restraint. He believed that a ruler must act with calculation, not with passion, not with raw impulse. Because the man who cannot control his emotions can never truly control outcomes. Think back to the last time you snapped, the last time someone triggered you, and you responded with raw anger or fear or desperation. Who had the power in that moment? Not you. It was the person who provoked you, the one who skillfully knocked you off balance and pulled your strings without ever even raising their voice. That's what emotional control protects you from. It protects your image, your position, your influence. Because the one who remains centered and calm when everyone else is losing their composure becomes the one everyone starts to watch, to look to. Why? Because calm in chaos looks like leadership. And leadership in any context draws respect. In any negotiation, in any conflict, the one who can stay quiet when provoked, still when insulted, unshaken when challenged, is the one who simply cannot be manipulated. Machiavelli wasn't telling you not to feel emotions. He was telling you not to bleed in front of those who would use your blood against you. Your emotions are sacred, but your reactions are a public display of where you're still vulnerable, where you're still weak. So start paying close attention to that rise in your chest, to the heat flushing your face, to the tightening of your voice when your pride is wounded. Because if they can touch those nerves, they can absolutely control your next move. But if they can't, they lose all leverage. Mastering your emotions doesn't make you cold. It makes you dangerous. It means you can see clearly when others are blinded by rage. It means you make decisions from a place of strength, not from ego, not from fear. It means your presence carries a profound gravity. So next time someone tries to provoke you, pause, breathe, smile if you must, but never ever give them the satisfaction of watching you fall out of your center. Because in the end, it's not the loudest voice that wins. It's the calmest mind, the one that doesn't flinch, the one that doesn't react, the one that quietly owns the storm while everyone else drowns in it. Power doesn't always belong to the one who moves first. It belongs to the one who moves best. In a world addicted to speed, everyone wants results now. They rush, they react. They move out of a primal fear that if they wait, they'll somehow lose. But Machiavelli understood a far deeper truth. The true strategist doesn't chase. He waits. He studies. He watches. He lets others reveal themselves because he knows the first strike isn't the most important. The precise strike is. Think of a hunter. He doesn't just fire at the first rustle in the woods. He waits until the prey is in perfect range. One shot, one decision, one perfectly timed move that changes everything. That's what strategic patience gives you. It gives you leverage. It gives you clarity. It gives you the time to see the full board before you make your move. The average person reacts out of sheer urgency, but the man who can sit in the tension, who can hold his fire, who can let the moment build, is the man everyone fears. Because his silence is not weakness, it's calculated. His stillness is not indecision, it's preparation. Machiavelli said, "Fortune favors those who know how to adapt, and adaptation requires one skill above all else: timing." You don't need to speak first. You don't need to defend yourself instantly. You don't need to act just to prove you're doing something. You need to wait until the chaos settles, until the noise clears, until the opportunity becomes absolutely undeniable. And when that moment finally comes, you don't hesitate. You move with precision, with purpose, with undeniable presence. That's how you break through. That's how you win without shouting. That's how you dominate without rushing. Because true influence isn't about constant motion. It's about decisive impact. So I ask you, sincerely, will you keep acting on impulse like the rest of the world? Or will you train yourself to wait, to see, to know when your moment is truly near, and then strike in a way that no one saw coming? Because power does not belong to the loud. It belongs to the disciplined, to the intentional, to the one who knows that timing is absolutely everything. Now you know. You understand why kindness alone was never enough, why being liked never truly earned you power, why being constantly available, predictably emotional, only made you easier to use. You weren't weak, you were just unarmed. No one ever taught you that silence could be strength, that distance could create desire, that unpredictability could be more feared than confrontation, that your image isn't vanity, it's leverage, that emotions, when unchecked, can become your very own chains. That timing is in fact power.